I'm not worried about you. I should worry about Nancy.
Don't worry about me.
Okay, good. You're right up the street then. It is a sign of the times that here we are meeting over Zoom instead of enjoying an in-person gathering, but it's still good to be together. The Technion is Israel's oldest university, and it continues to inspire us with its ingenuity, contributions to humanity, even during a time when there have been government-mandated lockdowns in Israel. While it hasn't exactly been business as usual during the pandemic, the university's labs have continued to operate. Teaching is still taking place, and remarkably, especially if you watch Facebook, the Technion has turned some of its efforts to developing technologies that are already helping address COVID-related challenges. This is a perfect example of how the Technion implements, oh, I thought that was mine, implements its mission to solve some of humanity's most pressing issues, from energy and sustainability to advanced manufacturing, and of course, the broad arena of human health. This evening's speaker, Dr. Assaf Zinger, is the kind of researcher who steps in to address real life needs in the medical field using cutting edge technologies. I am happy that we're together during Hanukkah, and we're going to celebrate by asking Nancy Aronson, a fellow board member, to light the candles for us. You're on, Nance.
Thanks, Roz. I want to just say something first. Thank you. Hanukkah is a story of light prevailing over darkness, of the weak overcoming the strong, and of the potential for the miraculous. What's also fascinating to me, I love studying Hebrew words, is the word Hanukkah means dedication. And we all know that, and it would be perfect to talk about all of us being dedicated to the Technion tonight. But I also did a little research. Hanukkah is constructed from a three-letter root, Chet, Nun, and Chaf, which also happens to be the root of words having to do with teaching and education. Incredible that we're here tonight because of Hanukkah and the Technion, because of our dedication, so that we make sure that the teaching and education on that campus will prevail and will be fostered for many years to come. And we want to make sure that on that campus, we all realize that the potential every day is there for the miraculous. Erwin and I are going to light the Hanukkah candles. We wish you light, joy, and celebration, and a Chag Urim Sameach. Please unmute yourselves and sing along with us. Baruch atah
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
She'asa nisim lavoteinu,
Ayomim Azman Hazeh.
Amen.
That was beautiful, Nancy. Thank you. And Erwin, you added you added the missing link.
I added
Because-
the baritone.
Yeah. Thank you. You were terrific, both of you. and it does make it more festive. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jan Cornish, and Jan will introduce our speaker this evening.
Thank you, Roz, and happy Hanukkah to everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Technion alumnus, Dr. Assaf Zinger, one of Israel's rising stars in the areas of biomedical engineering and nanotherapeutics. He is currently completing a postdoctoral fellowship at the Houston Methodist Research Institute of Texas, where he is developing personalized biomimetic nanotechnology inspired by nature platforms for drug delivery and regenerative medicine. Specifically, he's working on a remedy for atherosclerosis contributing to heart disease,
Why don't you sit and you'll
finding
hear?
a cure for deadly brain
interesting.
cancer and glioblastoma, and addressing Rett syndrome, a rare postnatal disorder. Dr. Zinger received his Technion bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering and went on to receive his master's and doctoral degrees at the Faculty of Chemical Engineering in Assistant Professor Avi Schroeder's laboratory for targeted drug delivery and personalized medicine technologies. One of their many outstanding achievements entailed combining enzymes with nanoscale drug delivery systems to perform localized procedures that would have otherwise required surgery in a more effective and non-invasive manner. Dr. Zinger also worked on a new device for treating pancreatic cancer based on the slow release of drugs. At the Technion, Dr. Zinger served as the chairman of the Technion Student Association and as an academic assistant in both biomedical and chemical engineering, provided laboratory instruction and tutoring students. The grandson of a Holocaust survivor, Dr. Zinger, a major in reserves duty, served the Israel Defense Forces during 3 wars and operations. Clearly a superstar. He currently lives in Houston with his wife, Noah, an occupational therapist who works with autistic and deaf children, and is the manager of the Givanim program at the Israeli American Council, and their daughters, Ayala and Tamara. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Zinger.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction.
Let me interrupt you for just 1 minute and ask everybody, please mute while Assaf is speaking, because we'll be able to hear him better. I'm sorry, Assaf. Go ahead.
No, you owe me a beer. You cut me in the middle. So first of all, I canceled my background because I want you guys to see where am I at. So I'm actually sitting in my lab, Houston Methodist Hospital. We just started to vaccine our people against COVID-19. And spoiler, you will be the first group I'm going to present there my vaccine results. Spoiler, I'm going to get my vaccine next week, right after the emergency care physician, which deserve it much more than I do because I'm only the scientist. And our story will be ended with this small microfluidic chip that basically make the vaccines. So hold your breath. Spoiler, at the end of the presentation will be all COVID-19 oriented talk to show you what I'm doing in my lab, how the mRNA encapsulated nanoparticles affect immunization. But we have to go through 3 stories in, I don't know how much time do I have, 30 minutes? 30? Okay, I will fly.
You take whatever you need.
Yeah, that's the way, because
There
in
you
Texas,
go.
everything
You're
is
in
bigger
charge
and better.
now.
Yep. So first of all, I'm honored to talk in front of you guys in the 7th candle of Hanukkah. I see a lot of faces I love and I didn't see because of this damn disease for a long time. So let me say very, very high shalom to all my friends, ATS members, from Zeava, Vicky, Melody, Joy, David, and Karen is here. So guys, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Even though it's in Zoom, we should celebrate the cheer of life. So I want to bless all of you with happiness, and we are working on it. Like, give us three months, and I'm guessing we'll be out of there. Yeah, so now to the talk, really quick. So I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see the presentation. Can you see it? Perfect. So I'm running. Every time I will do stops during my talks. Please feel free to ask questions. Otherwise, it's boring because I know the material. No, I'm kidding. So please feel free to interact. So yes, that's the name of the title. Very mind-blowing ideas about how using nanoparticles for translational approach. And thanks God I chose this topic because now the world is using our nanoparticles to cure himself. So I had luck during my PhD and postdoc. I chose the hot topics that are probably going to affect our life in the next several years at least. The reason I decided to go to Texas and not to Boston is basically the data you see in front of you guys. So I did not know that the largest medical center in the world is localized in Texas until I met several professors from MD Anderson and Methodist Hospital, and they just showed me the data. And the data speaks on themselves because when you have 10 million patients per year, you can basically see everything. So if in Israel I see cases, weird cases, like 3 in a year, here you see them daily. The amount of money invested in this center is huge. But as I told you, I'm Israeli. I was born in Israel. I'm going to be back in Israel soon, hopefully next year. And the reason is because of the data you see in front of yourself. At the end, we are the #1 startup nation. So yes, let's talk science. So the first story that will bring us to the nanoparticle world will be the pancreatic cancer. So pancreatic cancer is the most lethal of all cancers. That's data that published by the Cancer Facts and Figures in 2019. It has 7% 5-year survival rate, and it's the 4th leading cause of cancer-related death in the United States alone. And I don't know if you ever saw pancreatic cancer in your eyes, but this is biopsy of cancer. On your left, you can see my laser. This is the healthy pancreas. And on the right, you can see the disease. You can actually see the tumors inside the pancreas. But that's not really helping us too much. So I stained these biopsies with Masson trichrome staining that stain collagen fibers, the same you have in your tendons, in your legs, in blue color. And when you focus and look inside the cells, you find this huge phenomena. On the diseased biopsy on your right, you can see this hardcore blue fibrotic network compared to the healthy one. So basically, if you think of it, and if you really touch this kind of tumors, it's very solid tumors. This density, this dense tumor basically cause higher interstitial pressure on the blood vessels and basically choke the supply of the body to the area of the tumor. So as Mr. Cornish mentioned earlier, I'm a major in reserves in the Israeli Defense Force. And in the middle of this research, I was called to protective edge operation. And after fighting 3 weeks in Gaza, I sat on this sand dune in the middle of Gaza. And I told one of my friends, you know what? I think I understood what we should do. He told me, what do you mean, Assaf? I told him, we need to penetrate the tumor bunker in order to deliver chemotherapy. And don't tell Hamas, but then came the idea of the Hamas nanoparticles, as I call them among friends. Basically, nanoparticles that can make small holes in the tumor allow chemotherapy to penetrate. I will make it more feasible for you guys. Something like that. So the tumor is the airplane. I need some nanoparticles that make a hole, right? And like Hamas did to us, dug the tunnels, and like the Viet Cong did in Vietnam, that's what exactly I'm going to do. And again, I didn't give them any IP rights. So the patent is Israeli, not Hamas patent. I decided to use liposome. Why did I decide to use liposome? Because it's FDA approved. That's the true answer. So if you want to use a nanoparticle, the first thing you want to do is to check if it's FDA approved because you want to administer it to people at the end. Having said that, these particles have just 2 unique, very interesting properties. The first, you can encapsulate hydrophilic reagents inside it, like enzymes. The second, you can put hydrophobic drugs in the membrane because they are lipophilic. They love lipids, which are the membrane of this particle. So I took this kind of nanoparticles and I started to think, what can allow me to make these holes in the tumor? Understanding the same dense collagen matrix I showed you in the biopsy, I used the body's own enzyme. I used collagenase. So the first patent was to take an enzyme that our body produces, collagenase, that know how to disassemble only collagen fibers, the same bunkers that protect the tumor from chemotherapy, and put it inside nanoparticle. One of the physicians that was in my team asked me, Assaf, why not injecting the enzyme directly to the bloodstream? The answer is that if you put the enzyme inside the nanoparticle, you protect it from other digestive enzymes. If you will inject the enzyme directly to the blood, it will be disassembled in seconds. And please remember this point, because remember at the end, I'm going to explain about the COVID-19 vaccine we are fabricating. And this is why we have to encapsulate the modified messenger RNA of the virus inside the particle. Because if you will inject the genetic cargo directly to the blood circulation, our body will disassemble it before our immune system will learn to recognize it. So keep that in mind. So on your left, you can see pancreatic cancer. The white material you see in front of you is the same blue collagen matrix I described. And if you ever saw a tendon, this is the color of a tendon. In red, you can see my nanoparticles that reach the pancreas, and I label them with this red beaker. The only problem was that I basically demonstrated in this figure the border, the collagen border I told you at the beginning. So only 1% of the injected dose reach the pancreas. So I have a model, pancreatic model. I know that my nanoparticles stuck in the tumor. Now let's make the holes, right? And this is another histology cuts I did. All the red dots are my nanoparticles, and in the blue areas, where you can see my laser now, that's basically the tumor. And as I told you, the particles cannot reach the tumor because there is a border that protects them. So what I did is to collect biopsies from pancreatic tumor and basically soak them in collagenase, the same enzyme I told you that know how to make the holes, solutions. So on upper left, you can see pancreatic tumor with 7% fibrosis, which is the collagen fibers, the blue bunker, which healthy pancreas on your right is only 0.75% fibrosis. But if you will take the same pancreatic cancer from here and soak it in collagenase, you will basically reduce the collagen matrix to 2.4. So I demonstrate it's feasible to make these holes. And the second thing I did was to take these tumors, decellularize them, remove the cells from the tumor, and then scan them using high resolution scanning electron microscopy. You can see again in healthy pancreas, you can see these black holes inside the pancreas. You can see the pancreatic tumor. You can see in your eyes now the dense collagen matrix, the same blue fibers I showed you at the beginning. And you can see the holes that my enzyme actually did. So after proving you that I can take a tumor, I can disassemble the collagen matrix inside it, let's put some chemotherapy inside it and see what's happened to the tumor. And that's exactly what I did. I developed a therapeutic approach using murine, using mice that bear pancreatic tumor labeled with red color. If the cells will propagate, you will see the tumor fluorescence, the redness of the tumor will be higher. However, if I manage to treat the tumor with my particles followed by chemotherapy, you will see that the signal disappeared. So I took mice that used as a control, and you can see the pancreatic tumor. This is the red dot you can see in their tummy. And after 14 days, you can see that this signal actually propagates, actually expands. In this case, the mice were treated with chemotherapy, paclitaxel, which is FDA-approved chemotherapy as well. However, the tumor increased. However, when I took my test mice, injected them with the, let's call it the bunker busters, followed by chemotherapy, you can see the tumor basically disappear. So we have now in our hand, and I have to like hold my breath because it's only in murine, and Professor Yuda Folkman always said, we know how to cure cancer in mice, but basically we have the first proof of concept that we can translate our technology to human beings based on the same model. And then, of course, we submit the paper to a very fancy journal, ACS Nano, which is the second important journal in our field. And this revision came back, and one of the reviewers, they're always super smart, asked you, Assaf, way to go, you made a hole in a tumor. You probably caused this poor mice metastasis all over the body. So I read this email, and I don't know if to cry or to laugh. And in order to answer this reviewer, I started to understand how metastasis spreads in our body. So basically, if you have a solid tumor, they take advantage of local breakdowns, send one cell that circulate in the blood circulation, that find another breakdown in the endothelia, which establish a new tumor. So in order to answer his question, I told myself, okay, I have red expressing tumor cells. Let's inject my particles to these mice, collect the filtering organs, liver, lungs, kidneys, spleen, the same organs you would expect to see metastasis, and check using a flow cytometer, which is a machine that know how to run our cells and look for this red signal and see if you see any signal of cancer cell in these organs. Interestingly, we did not see no evidence of metastatic disease based on the filtering organ. And then we explained it that our nanoparticles make nanometric holes, which is 10 in the order of -9 meter, compared to cells, which is our micron. So we have 3 order of magnitude difference between the holes to the cells. And this is why this therapeutic approach is not toxic and will probably won't cause metastasis. And again, spoiler, the reviewer liked this answer, and this paper was published as a cover in ACS Nano and being cited more than 25 times in less than a year. So hopefully in several years, we'll see this approach helping pancreatic cancer patients here in Methodist or across the road, or hopefully also in Israel. So this is just proof of concept that everything is healthy, and now I'll stop. So first story for tonight, done. Question. Oh no. Too fast, not clear, or everything was super? Let's move on. Okay, I'm moving on. So I finished my PhD. Apparently my committee really liked it because it was very nice talk. And after that, everybody drank beer in Israel. And I got my position in the academic institute here in Texas. And I started to ask myself different kind of questions. So not anymore look at the mice or the patients, because now we are handling patients as black box that you inject nanoparticles and see what happened to the tumor. I started to ask myself what really the nanoparticles feeling in my body. So, I literally close my eyes. I'm a nanoparticle. I put myself in the bloodstream. What can I see? So I'm seeing white blood cells. I can see endothelial. And all of this biological roadblock designed by God and nature prevents the nanoparticles to reach their target. However, I decided to look on white blood cells because, God and nature are the best engineers. They have millions of years of experience and more than trillion of experiments every day. So I asked myself, what are the best cells to learn from how to target disease? And the answer is white blood cells. So if you will try to think, what are the first, what are the firemen, the policemen of the body? These are our white blood cells. So leukocytes know how to target inflammation. So let's learn from leukocytes how they do it, steal it from them, and utilize it on my nanoparticles. And when I look at what leukocytes are doing, so leukocytes have membrane protein marker. They have this, it's like a Houston Texans hat, right? That mark themselves as leukocytes. They have LFA1, which, I can see all the East Coast. I'm sorry. What is the Dolphins, right? Miami Dolphins. That's you guys. Lymphocyte function associated antigen 1, the same LFA1 beacon that allow these leukocytes to target inflamed endothelia. So basically, our white blood cells circulate in the blood along again and again until inflammation occurs. ICAM1 expressed on endothelial, white blood cells targeted. So what I developed here in Texas, it's basically a microfluidic approach to steal this LFA1 marker from the leukocytes and utilize it on my nanoparticle. And that's the chip I just told you. So the chip I told you know how to integrate membrane markers to nanoparticles. And basically I'm using all that I learned in Israel during my bachelor's and PhD to deliver drugs, enzyme, contrast agent, and combine it with what I learned here in the Lone Star State, target inflammation. And this inflammation basically emphasizes everything in our body. Cancer, characterized by inflammation. Cardiovascular disease, characterized by inflammation. Bacteria infection, characterized by inflammation. So basically, I'm going to combine the two worlds, the Israeli and the Texas world, to one nanoparticles that know not only to deliver whatever I want, but also know how to target. You can think of my particles like Uber driver. They take whatever I want to wherever I want in the body. They're not always listening, but again, we'll get to the vaccine in the end. This is like Lego nanoparticles. This is how I imagine it. You tell me what you want to target, I will decorate the membrane protein on the surface, and I will put the drug inside it. More like personalized approach technology, right? And this is how my nanoparticles assemble. And the reason I decided to put this slide is, remember it, because I'll show you a cool video at the end. You can see basically the mRNA in green. This is the same molecules that we put in the vaccines. And you can see how the particle is self-assembled when you mix this molecule with lipid. So wait, Assaf, is it that simple? So no, there is a small trick in here. This orange thing are lipids that know to do two things. The first thing, when you put them in acidic environment, they become charged. They become cationic charge. RNA has negative charge. So basically, when you mix my lipids with the RNA in acidic environment, they connect to each other, plus and minus. Then I put my nanoparticles in 7.4 pH, which is our physiological blood buffer. And now they drop the charge. So basically the patent is how to encapsulate RNA inside nanoparticles, and don't tell Moderna, but this is their secret. So you can reveal it now. After you assemble these nanoparticles, you can ask yourself inflammation questions. So how can I target? And as you can see in front of you, the experimental model I developed was to take leukocytes, extract their membrane protein, the same LFI1 beaker I told you so, characterize them, check them in vitro and in vivo inside murine in two different inflammation models, bacterial inflammation in the ear and triple negative breast cancer. And again, now I will run a bit because I want to get to the vaccine part of it. We prepare these nanoparticles, we proved that we can make them, and in front of you, you can see endothelial cells, which are the same cells that decorate your blood vessels. And the red is our nanoparticles. So when we took the endothelial cells, the same cells you have in your blood vessels, and inflamed them using a lipopolysaccharide, which is a molecule that we have on bacteria, we saw higher targeting of our nanoparticles. This convinced us that we can target inflammation using biomimetic nanoparticles. And now we move to the in vivo model. In Texas, we developed this microscope that's called intravital microscopy. And by the way, Karen, we still don't have one of these in Israel, and this is what I'm telling them. If you'll bring me the microscope, I'll come back. This is the discussion now, the negotiation, that allow us to observe biological process in live animals. So just imagine this patient sit on his bed, you give him the vaccine, and you just look at the particles in the blood vessels. And excuse me for being that enthusiastic, but I found it very cool when I first saw the particles inside blood vessels. So in front of you, you can see a live animal. You can see the blood vessels labeled in green, and you can see my nanoparticles labeled in red, and they basically circulating in blood vessels in live animals. So if somebody will tell me, how do you know your nanoparticles are in the blood? Guys, watch. And interestingly, I noticed that my nanoparticles, the one I put the leukocytes membrane protein markers, are more fluidic compared to the synthetic nanoparticle on the left. So this is the normal approved FDA liposomes, and this is my nanoparticle. So basically, by giving my nanoparticles membrane protein of white blood cells, I'm not only improving their inflammation targeting skills, I also allow them to circulate for longer time, which in the future will allow me to inject only one dose to patients and not two doses like we are doing now. At the end, we demonstrated this efficacy in vivo in two different models, and you can see my particles here in the upper right, in the right inflamed ear, compared to the approved FDA nanoparticles. If you see more red, it says that more particles target the ear, and in cancer model as well. You can see the mice with the tumor, and this is the synthetic nanoparticles FDA approved, while this is our nanoparticle. This is 3 patents that were written by me here in Texas, and of course, Methodist took in charge of it. But no worries, I kept some secrets. And now to the last part, and please engage more, because now I'm going to talk about the vaccine that hopefully all of you guys will do. Okay, so on your questions. No? Jump into the COVID-19. So on the left, you see what human beings created after 30 years of experience. Very complex nanoparticles that know how to deliver mRNA. On your right, you can see the coronavirus. And if you'll ask my non-subjective opinion as an engineer, I will say that the right one is much better engineered. You can see the order in this enormous small 30 nanometer vesicle and the effect he caused the world. And every time I'm thinking of that, I'm dazzled about the fact that this small nanoparticle, like 30 nanometer, basically almost collapsed our economics all over the world. However, we decided that we are going to fight it. And how are we going to fight it? So as you probably already know, the coronavirus has been characterized by the corona, which is in Spanish is crown, right? So it has protein crown that is very unique to this kind of COVID. So what we did is to take RNA strands, which are genetic cargos that know to express protein, of the corona. Why it's good to express the corona? Because the corona is not dangerous to the body. What causes the problem is the genetic cargo inside this virus. So basically, if we will teach our body to recognize the spikes, the corona spikes, using our nanoparticles, we will be a vaccine. So here is the formulation. And again, I know we are recording it because I had a bad experience before. So I removed all the shush details so you can record it and you can publish it. So basically we use the lipid formulation. This is the name of the lipid. And Pfizer used different lipid, by the way. This is the only difference between our formulation to Pfizer formulation, and Moderna still didn't publish their formulation. They mix it with cholesterol, polyethylene glycol, and a helper lipid. Again, I bring you back to the ionizable lipid, the same lipid that I taught you the secret, how to conjugate it to genetic cargo. You just put it in acidic pH, right? After you mix all of these components using the microfluidic chip, and now you will see what's really happening in my chip. So genetic cargo, mRNA coronavirus spikes on the left, lipids on the right. And when you mix everything in the chip, you can actually see the formation of the nanoparticle in front of you. And it's simple as it looks. So 1 milliliter of formulation of COVID-19 vaccine take us less than 2 minutes to manufacture, 1 milliliter. This system can be scalable. And again, this is one of the systems that I told the Technion I'm going to purchase when I'm coming to Israel in order to translate our nanoparticles fabrication to humans. So no more mice, let's test it on humans. And instead of injecting 100 microliter, we need to inject 1 liter. And this system knows how to do it because we are going to connect one chip, as I told you, as I saw you at the beginning, this small little thing I'm holding in my hand, we can know how to put 100 like this parallel and manufacture these nanoparticles. And you will see the second in a video. The nanoparticles are being assembled, and then we are going to deliver them. And now we are getting to the cherry on the top of this talk. I'll show you the efficacy of our formulations in vitro. So this is basically the chip, and now you can see how it aligned in parallel with other chips in order to fabricate basically 1 liter of formulation in less than 10 minutes. So we took our nanoparticles, I labeled them with the red color, I put genetic cargo inside it, and you already know how to do it because I gave you my cookbook. And now basically you see the particles inside the cells. And the only thing we want to see that if the cells will express green protein. Why green protein? Because if I would tell these cells express the COVID-19 spikes, you won't be able to see it because the spikes are 1 nanometer. So I use the beaker. I use the green beaker as a proof of concept of protein expression by cells. So, you know, when we did this experiment, I prayed very hard during the weekend. And on Monday, I saw these green beakers and I know, yes, we know how to fabricate mRNA encapsulated nanoparticles. We know to deliver it to cells and we cause the cells to express the protein. The second thing that happens now in your body is that the T cells and the B cells are coming, recognize these proteins that they never saw before, and basically immune yourself against COVID-19. We repeat this experiment in several other cells. This time I didn't want to express protein. I wanted to silence protein. And you can see how I took green fluorescent protein expressing cells and basically make them dark. So I know not only to regulate protein expression, I'm also holding the antidote to keep it shush if I'm doing it too much. And the last thing, because I owe you that, I told you, remember that I told you that we have to encapsulate our genetic cargo inside particles. If you will take the genetic cargo, which you can see in line A1, and mix it with enzymes that circulate in our body, you can see how the enzyme basically shred the genetic cargo. You don't see any markers in line 2 anymore. However, when you encapsulate the genetic cargo in nanoparticles, mix it with our blood, you can still see the genetic cargo. So the real importance of the nanoparticles is to protect the genetic cargo. This is the valuable genetic cargo from degradation. I won't talk about that because I think we don't have time. So let's keep something for my other talk. That's how we use these vaccines to treat autism in specifically Rett syndrome in patients. We will do it in my next talk. I would just want to summarize. Drug delivery strategies can follow the rules modalities of cell-to-cell communication. I learned from the leukocytes how to target inflammation and use it to my nanoparticles. Biomimicry is a designing principle to engineer nanoparticles. As you saw, my nanoparticles are inspired by the way nature and God designed COVID-19 virus, and this is what we are trying to do. Leucosomes resemble the proteolipid composition of leukocytes. I can target inflammation, and this targeting can be tuned for specific application, as I mentioned before, cancer, autism, virus, cardiovascular disease. So the opportunities are endless here. This is all my friends here in Italy. I call it Little Italy because we are in Texas, but all my lab are Italians. And these are my family, Noah, Tamara, and Ayala. Tamara is much bigger now. I have to update this picture, so next time we'll meet. And I want to thank you all for listening and bless you with Chag Sameach, and let's meet next year and lead the candles together and not using Zoom. I will be happy to take any questions.
So Assaf, I want to congratulate you on being able to present such complex scientific information and discovery in a very cohesive and understandable way, although I think it was a little above my expertise at some level, but nonetheless, it was fascinating of all these different areas that you were exploring. I did have a question because I think a lot of people are, particularly concerned about, the vaccine and its efficacy, but also particularly its safety. And so with the Pfizer, and the Moderna vaccines, which are these mRNA technologies, since they've never really been employed before, I think the public is concerned about what is the short-term and the long-term safety of introducing mRNA into our cells. Do you have a sense of that, or do you have any thoughts about that, given that you're experimenting with the mRNA portal?
So that's a very, again, non-biased question. So let's start from the end. I'm going to get the vaccine on December 21. So that's the spoiler about what I am as a scientist think about the vaccine. I'm going to get the Pfizer vaccine because it's the only one that is FDA approved by now. And this is how I was trained in the army. So, there is FDA vaccine, personal input, and then professional input. The reason I'm going to get a vaccine is because my daughter Tamara is 9 months old and my parents never met her. I lost my sister's wedding in Israel because of this virus. And I'm not afraid on myself, to be honest. I'm feeling compassion to the guys that don't have the, knock on wood, hamsa, immune system I have. So basically, if I'm taking the bus and next to me sits a 90-year-old dude, I don't want him to be sick because of me. So that's why I'm getting the vaccine. That's my personal input. The professional input now. So I just showed you 2 years of research, which I know that people are doing for 10 years now. So the mRNA is limited because if you remember my cells that express the GFP beaker, after 72 hours, this protein disappeared. So mRNA cannot integrate in your nucleus. So if somebody is afraid of genetic mutation by RNA, that cannot be. Even more than that, I showed you what happens if you take RNA and just mix it with your blood. Your enzymes will disassemble it in less than minutes. So regarding the genetic cargo, the answer is simple. The RNA durability is not long, will disassemble after several hours. And this is, by the way, why you're getting a second dose after 21 days, like the second boost, because it's not there anymore. The second question is the lipid nanoparticle now. So lipids nanoparticle by themselves are FDA approved because these lipids are the same lipids, Mr. Cornish, you have in your body. In your cell membrane, you have DSPC, you have DPPC. This is what we are made of. However, the only two things that are not familiar by our body is the polyethylene glycol polymer I mentioned, and the ionized lipid, the same trick that encapsulates the genetic cargo. For this one, we don't have enough data, so I don't know. We have to ask Pfizer or Professor Langer for MIT. For the polyethylene glycol, I can say for sure that although some evidence of small antibody manufacturing was observed during the last years, we are talking about very minimum amounts. And even more than that, there are ongoing research that shows that if you use specific kinds of polyethylene glycol, our body won't produce antibodies against it. So the real question about this polymer, the polyethylene glycol, is, let's say these vaccines are the best new thing, are the hype now, everybody are doing them. In 40 years from now, if you get another vaccine with polyethylene glycol, will your body produce antibodies against it? If I'm putting this on the table and compare it to the risk for me developing COVID-19 disease, I'll take it any day. That's my input on that.
That's wonderful perspective from both a scientific and a personal standpoint, and I appreciate your input.
So,
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Assaf, it's Vicki. I just want to say it's remarkable to see how far your work has come just since the last time you were in the Bay Area, and it's wonderful to see you. Can you tell everyone, first of all, how philanthropy's played into your career, and also what you need for that microscope? So I want to make sure you go back to Technion.
So first of all, yeah, Vicky, trust me, we miss you guys. We really want to come visit again, especially now that, Ziv Lautman is his PhD in Stanford, and I'm a huge supporter of him. So I really want to help this guy. A Technion alumnus that developed this awesome company, and you should definitely read about it. So philanthropy in our life. So I will say that during my bachelor degree, and I see that Seth Jackie is here, so I have to be very honest and blunt. I didn't know much about the ATS because, undergrads in the Technion don't really understand. And I don't see Bede Levinson here, but until I met Bede in Florida, I didn't really know that the Fishbach building is on her family name. So only when I met the ATS guy, more specifically Larry Jackier, that convinced me for some reason to fly to the States, and since then he's like my godfather, I didn't really understand the impact of philanthropy on our life. But then you suddenly start to break up the building blocks and literally the building blocks of the Technion. And you understand that without this philanthropy support, these buildings will never be right. Even more than that. I remember that after Protective Edge, Larry convinced me to fly to the States. And we needed this. I showed you how my particles target inflammation, but we never had this instrument in Israel, the in vivo imaging system that cost, I think, almost 500K. And after a short visit to the States with Larry, meeting the board, meeting with President Lavie, the former President Lavie, we got this machine. And thanks to this machine, our work just burst like in several years. So let's be honest. When I got the contract here in Texas, I don't think it's something that the Israeli government can compete. So now it came to the question of Zionism, right? So how much Assaf wants to raise his daughters in Israel? So I'm a sucker for Israel, even though we don't have football teams and our soccer is awful. But, my grandfather escaped the Nazis, not that Assaf will stay in the States and enjoy the fruits of what's ever happening here. So I think what's happened with philanthropy is basically break even, because the very generous startup packages offered by the Technion, and of course, David, Karen, and all the ATS team, please correct me, are pretty much now compared to the things that the United States offering to us here, and only with the help of philanthropy. Because if you see at the startup package, the minimal startup package that the Israeli government is offering, it's not really fair. It's not going to Las Vegas and not playing in the high roller tables, because there is not even a way to discuss
Not
it.
even close.
Yeah. So that's my answer, Vicky.
Incredible.
Thanks.
I'm sure we're all wowed by you, your information, your presentation. it's a real honor and a privilege. And when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Karen? Where's Karen? Karen, how?
I'm here.
Okay,
Assaf, I want to thank you so much
yes.
for you know,
Wow, for
treating us
everything.
to your talk tonight. We are so happy to have you here, and to show you how happy we are. Not only do we have our donors from all over the country, really, but as you know, several of my colleagues, Vicky and Joy and Ariane and David, came specifically in their free time because they wanted to spend time with you. And that says a lot.
Oh, now I can see Ariane. Now I can see Ariane.
Yeah.
I know
Right.
I'm the only one that you don't know yet, but we know each other from Facebook. And I don't know if everybody knows, but Assaf has another talent that is extraordinary, and it's his baking.
Ah,
Amazing.
Don't go there even. You have no idea what we are doing here. So, sorry, a spoiler. So I'm making sourdough bread that I took from Arkansas, which is the 9th generation starter. And basically what we are doing now is Baylor College of Medicine is doing RNA sequencing for this bread, because apparently it carries probiotics that we don't have anymore in our stomach. And you'll be surprised because I have several friends with Helicobacter pylori, and when they started to eat this bread, it disappeared. So again, I'm a scientist, but hey, this bread has magical inside it. So
Well,
yeah,
you have shared with me before that baking is a combination of biology and chemistry. So there you go.
And dedication.
Dedication. And that's a perfect segue for me to go back to what Nancy was saying about Hanukkah and share something really quickly. Nancy shared with you one of the interpretations of Hanukkah, and being a Jewish crowd, we always have lots of different interpretations. So I'd like to offer you a little bit of my own. And that is that I learned not too long ago, and some of my friends have heard this, that the root of the word nisayon, which is the word for test or challenge, happens to be nis, the Hebrew word for miracle. So what is that? A miracle can be born out of challenges. And I think that's a very poignant notion for us to think about right now as we face so many challenges in our environment. And of course, what I think of the most when I think about making miracles out of challenges is the Technion and the work of people like Assaf and others. And so I want to thank all of you that are supporting the Technion, and to invite those of you who haven't already to help us participate in that miracle. And it's not just about the medical field, but there are so many other things that the Technion addresses: energy and aerospace and artificial intelligence, and so many of the technologies that make a huge difference to some of the problems that we face in our world. So thank you very much. And if any of you need to learn more about the Technion, please feel free to be in touch with me. If you're contemplating making a gift, I'm happy to discuss how you can achieve your philanthropic dreams. And I'm just a phone call away. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Chag Sameach, and it's so very nice to have all of you here. Have a great night.
yes,
Yeah.
and happy
Thank you.
Hanukkah to all.
Happy Hanukkah. Wonderful to see you.
What is your
So
telephone
wonderful.
number? What is your telephone number?
Oh, yes,
Oh.
Karen.
My telephone number, 561 832 5401. And I will be in touch with everybody afterwards. I'll follow up, so you don't really need to write it down.
And there's a new matching grant. Right, Carol?
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
It hasn't even been announced yet, but a very generous member of our national board has offered to help us with our year-end giving by offering a match. So we can double our income at the end of the year. And it's a wonderful thing.
We have a
Thank
new Nesayon
Yes.
challenge, a new challenge,
New
Nesayon.
challenge. Yes.
Exactly, exactly.
Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
David.
evening. Okay.
Yes, and happy Hanukkah, and enjoyed being with everyone.
It was a real pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thanks
Nice
for
to see
including
you.
me, Karen. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Assaf.
thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Katie,
Bye.
are you still here? There she is. This is my
Thank you,
aunt.
Nancy.
Betty
Thank you.
Goldstein is my aunt.
Oh, hi.
Oh, nice.
All right, so thanks, and we will.
And thanks to you.
All right.